Hey everyone. Okay, so I got a bit of an update for you about that New Zealand brewery, the one that thought it was a good idea to make the 51st state beer. A lot of you made sure that they understood that we didn't find that satire funny at all, and I'm pretty sure they got the message. But after that video went up, I started noticing a bit of a trend in the responses in the video. Not just what people were saying, but where some of those Canadians can't take a joke comments were coming from. So today I want to show you a bit of an update, and also talk about these comments. Today's backdrop comes from me, my last day at home before heading overseas. I'll be honest, I can't wait to come back to visit, which I do get to do a few times a year, so I'll keep everybody posted. Alright, let's get started. So a few videos ago, I showed a Reddit post from one of our viewers in the Garden Leaf subreddit. The New Zealand Brewery released the 51st State Red IPA beer and called it satire. In the subreddit post, it was pretty clear that Canadians and even our international allies felt it was in bad taste, tone deaf, unnecessary, and just not appropriate. My whole reasoning for bringing it into the video was to show that the 51st state rhetoric is not a joke to many Canadians. It's not funny, and a lot of us are getting tired of people treating us like some harmless meme. What came out of it though was a wave of outrage and disappointment towards this brewery, and honestly towards New Zealand at the first glance. But to be fair, I don't blame an entire country for one company's lack of judgment. So please don't blame New Zealand. To be fair, the brewery does make a lot of anti-Trump satire beers as well, and a bunch of other trending-based labels too. So the satire angle wasn't new for them. But still, using our country's sovereignty as a punchline, it went a little bit too far. Many of you emailed me saying you let the brewery know exactly how you felt, and that you made it clear that Canada's sovereignty isn't something to mock or use to turn a profit. And I'm happy to share an update. One of our viewers reached out to the brewery and posted a response in the subreddit. They've now changed the 51st State Red IPA to Never 51 Red IPA, and this one actually sends the right message. Honestly, if I were visiting New Zealand, I would buy this. And the original Reddit viewer who brought this to our attention actually spoke to the company, and they have changed their tone, which I'm not going to show how their tone was before. But they did say they missed the mark on the previous 51st State label. I can say this one, the updated one, is a lot more appropriate compared to the other one. So to the CEO of Behemoth Brewery, I am sorry for causing your inbox to get flooded, but I do appreciate the change of tone when it comes to the subject and updating the label. The 51st State is a sensitive topic for many Canadians, including myself. Maybe all the reasons why Canadians are upset doesn't make it to the local and national news in New Zealand. You are quite far from us, and that's understandable. But I'm going to show you exactly why Canadians have zero tolerance when it comes to the 51st State. But I do appreciate the update, and I'm sure many Canadians watching this will as well. Now, what came out of my previous video on this topic was an overwhelming number of upset Canadians. But there were also comments saying like, Canadians are too sensitive, relax, take a joke, you're being too serious, or it was just humor. What I noticed is that a lot of these comments were from people who weren't even from Canada. They were coming from New Zealand, Australia, and the United States. And here's my thoughts on this. What might be humor to you isn't funny to the country that's actually dealing with the consequences. Whenever I hear these comments, it feels like a bully laughing at something that the other person doesn't feel funny, and then saying, relax, it's just a joke. Well, I hate bullies. And I've dealt with my fair share growing up. And the more you let things slide, the more it becomes acceptable in the mind of the bully. But we have a mountain of reasons to be upset about the 51st State rhetoric, and I'm going to go over a few of them, because this is what we have to deal with as the neighbor living right next to the dysfunctional neighbor south of us. Let's take a look at example number 1.
He's going to gerrymander, and if they want to add stars to the flag, okay, we'll just take Alberta, Saskatchewan, Manitoba. And it doesn't have to be aggressively. We can take it peacefully. It will be a mostly peaceful invasion.
Now, this disgusting human being is just a mouthpiece, repeating the same rhetoric and sentiment that we hear from every single one of the Trump supporters. This message is going out to millions of US citizens who now think it's perfectly fine to say these things about a sovereign country, a country that's been a friend for decades and has helped the US in more situations than they remember. 9/11, when we took in their stranded passengers, the Iran-Canadian caper, Afghanistan, all of their forest fires. The list goes on. Jesse Waters is just one person saying this on the air, but millions are taking this in as gospel. Let's move on to the next example.
I am fully opposed to taking over Canada. Why would we want a bunch of libs in some like Arctic wasteland? Like if we're gonna take something over, like Turks and Caicos. I mean,
that would be
let
nice.
like be smart here. What do we need Greenland for? I have a list of places we should take over before we take over these frozen, wastelands.
Again, this is what some of our neighbors south of us actually think about Canada. A frozen Arctic wasteland. A country they look down on while being so full of themselves that they don't even bother researching that Canada has a lot of resources that the United States literally depends on. And this attitude, the condescension, the US exceptionalism, is something that Canadians have dealt with for decades. It's not just the constant takeover threats and the 51st state talk from the Republicans. It's the assumption that Canadians can't resist the United States, that we have nowhere else to go, that we'll eventually crack on our boycott just because we love the US too much. Just listen to this guy.
Williams believes once the weather really starts to turn,
they'll make a statement for a while, and then they'll get in the middle of winter and then quietly get on a plane and go down the next day.
We will? I don't see many Canadians hopping on a plane to go visit. You guys wouldn't be bitching about lack of tourists if we were. You see what I mean though? This attitude that we'll just be back, that we will cave on our values, and that we somehow can't resist the United States. It's the same sort of dismissive mindset that completely ignores how fed up Canadians actually are. Here's another US company with the exact same attitude.
Groups like First Nature Tours are urging Canadians to embrace our natural resources and not be afraid to admit they like Oregon.
I used to visit Oregon, but not anymore. And the fact that you're assuming that I'm somehow afraid to admit that I miss Oregon, that alone is the reason I will never go back. I've got a few more examples to show you. Canadians watching this, we already know all of this. We're the targets of the Trump administration and his minions for almost a year now. But I'm showing these clips for those outside of Canada, and maybe even the CEO of Behemoth Brewery, so you can see exactly why Canadians are genuinely upset about the whole 51st state nonsense. Let's move on to the next example.
Impacted by a change or drop in cross-border travel. The majority shared they've lost business or seen increased costs.
The other really important component to this conversation is the exchange rate. I want to say that it was right about a 70 cents to the dollar, and we have always known that that is pretty close to the bottom of the exchange rate where it just doesn't make financial sense for Canadians to shop here.
A classic example of a US business or official not listening to why Canadians are boycotting, and instead, just projecting their own beliefs and their own excuses about why we're not visiting their beloved country. It must be the exchange rate or the weather, but definitely not their president, right? And the disrespect isn't just coming from the US media, businesses, or tourism experts. We even have to deal with this idiot right in our own country.
I'm disappointed that I came to Canada, a Canada that it is very, very difficult to find Canadians who are passionate about the American-Canadian relationship. Okay? You ran a campaign where, it was anti-American, elbows up, me too. It was an anti-American campaign. That has continued. That's disappointing.
Classic example of the gaslighting we have to deal with on our own Canadian soil. And this idiot usually says something stupid at least once a month. He's due for another one in the next 7 to 9 days, I think. And then there's this guy who decided he would suck up to Trump by writing his own demand letter to Canada and step-by-step instructions on how Western Canada can join the US. He listed out the do's and don'ts of becoming a United States citizen, telling us what rights we have, what Canadian laws we'd have to drop, what we'd have to adapt to in order to join the great USA. And apparently one of the perks that he said is that we get to bear arms. So I'm curious, and this is directed to the CEO of Behemoth Brewery, or anyone outside of Canada and the US. Did this story ever show up in New Zealand news? Or is this completely new to you? I'm not throwing any shade at you at all. I'm genuinely curious if people outside of Canada and the United States even heard about this situation with this senator. Because this right here is why, as a Canadian, the phrase 51st state is such a massive trigger for me right now. I even hate the number 51. So for anyone in the comments saying that Canadians can't take a joke, we're too sensitive, or we don't understand humor, there's nothing humorous about what I just showed you. And I know a huge majority of Canadians feel the exact same way. Some might not be as vocal or passionate as we are on this channel, But you can bet that we will never look at the United States the same way again. Humor only works if both sides find it funny. If one side doesn't, then you're not being funny, you're just being the bully. So I urge anyone that's saying that Canadians can't take a joke to actually look at what we're dealing with from our dysfunctional neighbor before making that claim. The world needs more empathy and compassion. That's it for today's video. If you found any value in this video, help the channel by hitting the like and subscribe button below. I really appreciate the support. Thanks again, and I'll see you in the next video.